to tell yourself a story, essentially,
Rip
about
stop,
what's
μαλάκα
going
εδώ.
on, where you
Yeah.
are in space
Take
and
it.
time.
It's the brain that helps us to process all this information and to create for us a rendition of what our world is all about. But we're trapped within that brain. However, in spiritual experiences where people feel that they get beyond the self, in certain types of psychedelic experiences where you have incredible sensory and other types of phenomena, people really feel like they are able to
Come
kind of
on.
get outside of their brain. We have to take a very big look at what is going
We
on
need
within them
Emergon,
when
right?
they have the experience and try to understand
Emergon
what
is
happens
this way.
physiologically
Let's go
and
this
try to
way.
make sense of it from the subjective perspective as well as from the objective perspective. I don't think you can just say, let's just explain it away on the basis of science.
What I was doing early on when I was hearing these reports were interpreting them, calling them psychological or brain chemistry aberrations or whatever. That there was a
Nice.
part of the brain
One
that was
golden
being
iPhone.
dinged that was responsible for the alien appearance phenomenon.
This is not a new phenomenon. Entities in altered states
Πρέπει να έχεις κάπου μπροστά από τα cash register εδώ πέρα.
in many cultures over the millennia. Helpers, spirit assistants, angels, all of these different entities have been fairly common throughout man's experience of altered states and through much of man's mythology.
I don't think it's out of the possibility that people are in some way
Κάτσε να έρθω μαζί σου ρε φίλε γιατί φοβάμαι. Τώρα πηγαίνω μόνος μου δεν λέει. Να σε καλύπτω, να με καλύπτει.
Όπου έχει respirator το αλάνι. Πετάω το δικό μου, παίρνω το δικό του.
Πάμε πίσω να λουτάρουμε.
Καλά, full είμαι.
What you bring back, I think, has to be something more than there are these entities out there. The best psychedelic explorers are people who realize that even the truths they see on a trip are not truths, but new models, new what-ifs, alternative frames.
Unless there is a map and a clear methodology, then one will just have a variety of different experiences. All these various experiences that have been reported from NDEs, near-death experiences, alien abduction, encounters, sexual abuse. I believe all of these experiences, in fact, are fractals. If we understand the concept of fractal geometry, no matter how small it is, it contains everything that is in the larger picture. And thus, that validates profoundly all these various experiences.
Discount the phenomenon as hallucinatory or imaginary. I think it's maybe more useful to look at a mechanism of action. You know, if it is real, then perhaps how does it work?
Look, there's extraordinarily regular phenomena that come up with these things that are clearly linked in many ways to these larger human issues around mysticism or religious experience or encounters with other entities. And here we have it. And if you can't go in there and really go in there and account for this material inside your neuroscientific framework, you're leaving a huge gap. You got to account for this stuff the way you got to account for dreams, the way you got to account for all sorts of psychoactive responses.
Using DMT as an explanatory model, as kind of the mediator between consciousness and non-corporeal sort of reality, you know, it's handy.
With DMT, there are no words. I would try to wrap mathematical vocabulary around the experience afterwards. I specialized in the metaphor of vibration and how vibrations in fluids created form in fluid.
Είμαι μπροστά στο τέτοιο.
Να περιμένεις. Έτσι μπράβο, πατσουράκο.
Ρε μπρο.
Περίμενε με αυτό γιατί φοβάμαι. Να περιμένεις.
Τι χέζεσαι ρε μαλάκα.
Psychedelic drugs or other types of pharmacological substances can help to induce a state where people feel that they touch a deeper sense of reality, where they understand reality on a more
I'm ready.
fundamental level, and gain a great deal of insight and knowledge
We're going
into
to
the ways in which
extract.
the world works and how
Εδώ
they
ρε.
are as a human being supposed to relate to that world.
Εντάξει, φτάνει.
EMT is somehow, it seems to me in my experience, more of a breakthrough
Μαλάκα
than
άντρα.
LSD, mushrooms,
Μαλάκα
ALE,
άντρα.
and so on. It's instructive.
We're going to
It's
extract
more
roots.
supportive
Από
of
εδώ, έλα, από εδώ,
future
έλα, πας από
evolution
εκεί.
and the creation of the
Να
future.
τσεκάρω μην έχουν πετάξει κανένα
And it
αγκία ρε
is
εδώ.
in itself more of a mystery.
BRB.
How could this little stuff produce
Ναι.
something that
Σε λίγο.
has
Έλα γεια.
intelligence? You know, that
Τι
is
τώρα?
actually a doorway to another reality.
So what is the nature of reality, and what is the nature of how we as human beings experience it? Can we understand it better? Are we capable of understanding reality on some very fundamental levels? And what do we need to do in order to prepare
Έχω
for that?
προχωρήσει μπροστά, όπως μπήκες εδώ πέρα για να φύγουμε. Σε περιμένω. Πού πας ρε? Γιατί φεύγεις απ' την άλλη?
Πίσω μεριά ρε.
Ποια πίσω μεριά ρε?
Πίσω μεριά.
Συγγνώμη, γιατί μπήκες εδώ πέρα μέσα ρε πατσουρέτ?
Για να λουτάρουμε τα PC.
Ποια PC και γιατί δεν φεύγουμε από εδώ πέρα κατευθείαν τότε?
Πού είσαι εσύ?
Έλα εκεί πέρα μέσα, προχώρα ευθεία στο διάδρομο. Να λουτάρουμε λέει τα PC. Έλα από εδώ. Κάνεις ολόκληρο...
All of these, what we call the fundamental fields of mathematical physics, are new discoveries. Dark energy is also even newer discovery, and beyond that are maybe more discoveries yet coming beyond our cosmos itself.
Κάτσε να βάλω ένα painkiller.
In higher dimensions, as they say.
Πεπίνα είναι την φελά.
Δεν είμαι πολύ καλά. Τι? Όχι ρε, το βρήκα ρε, σάιγκα είναι αυτό.
Πεπίνα είναι την.
Is not the source of consciousness, is not really who we are, but it's more like a radio tuner.
Τελείωνε ρε Λίδη, τελείωνε.
Way bigger.
Χοροπηδάς. Τι χοροπηδάς? Μας να υπάρχουν τώρα σου πω.
By physiological processes, or is the brain itself responding to something that's going on? And the fact that somebody may actually find a way of turning on their brain to spiritual experiences, again, I mean, I'm not sure that that necessarily diminishes the reality or the realness of what those experiences are about.
Από αριστερά άκουσα κάτι.
If the pharmacology or the psychopharmacology of psychedelic experiences turned out to be essentially the same as religious or spiritual experiences,
δεν τον φάω,
help us to understand where these experiences are occurring within the human brain.
I'm actually quite convinced that we're probing the biological basis of moral and ethical behavior.
Τον έφαγες.
Primary religious experiences
wow, αριστερά.
bedrock of the world's religions.
The knowledge and speculation about the pineal body and is in fact the hand of God that is interacting with our natural evolution to stimulate and accelerate the process of redemption of individual and of collective enlightenment.
Φίλε, τι σκάβει είναι αυτός?
This experience is so familiar for a lot of different people, and is so easily acquired, and so much information comes with so little effort that it is a kind of a miracle. It's a miraculous way for us to transcend ordinary reality and obtain maybe an intimation of what's necessary for survival.
Ranging from new forms of medical treatment to a better understanding of the universe to life-changing spiritual revelations, these natural tools offer us the ability to seek greater knowledge. Tools that could positively affect life on our planet.
Go get some
Let's
rest.
answer Dr. Strassman's question. If so, So what?
Because of the collapse of consciousness,
I think I'm gonna go.
spiritual
Sure,
and
wait. Gotta call my
scientific
brother
knowledge
and see
split apart.
what
Both
he's
these
doing.
modes of knowing have to come together. In other words, science and technology, from a traditional religious perspective, is not an extra. It is part of the process by which humanity is going to evolve into its next stage.
How do we find like the right form for psychedelics in the future? I mean, assuming that psychedelics are part of the human future, right? For that, at the moment, they're still, generally repressed and suppressed and legal. If that were to change, how would we begin to construct a kind of system that would allow for a kind of rational and mature exploration of psychedelics?
I think that the name of the game is to show science the pertinence of
Wait,
this
because
somewhat
I'm fighting with a
outlandish
scarf.
realm. And it's not just crazy stuff. It shouldn't be considered as, let's say, not even worthy of interest or illegitimate. I actually think because it's declared off bounds, it just makes it interesting to start with. But one doesn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Where is
I
Kenny?
think it's really important to stay faithful to science.
What does it mean? Why
Where is the body
there
of Kenny?
a part of the brain that seems to be, for lack of a better word, a god detector? What's the evolutionary advantage to having some part of the brain that seems to, trigger and mediate experiences of the transcendent?
The Kabbalah is revealing to us that the pineal body is actually the very edge of the higher dimension that is penetrating into our lower dimension, and it is located precisely in the middle of the brain.
I can remember reading about Descartes, thinking that it was actually the interface between the spiritual dimension and the dimension of matter. And I remember studying that as a foolish idea from our history. And now it seems actually like a very interesting idea.
What we are looking for out there.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go, guys.
Here. It
Where?
is the doorway. It
Play some
is the
Lineage
gate.
2 and go to sleep.
So we focus on the transformative effect of
Okay,
psychedelics.
I'm
But it's
gonna
also
sleep
true that the
tomorrow.
reverse is true, that it requires transformation in order to
You're gonna sleep
embrace
tomorrow,
psychedelics.
you fucking bastard.
It's one of the tricky paradoxes of postmodernism,
You're gonna
that
burn
psychedelics
your
both
brain
acquire and produce a
Lineage.
transformative effect.
Yes.
We have severed
Yes.
our connection to spirit. That's what our society has done. It has sought to persuade
love you
us that
guys.
the material realm is the only
Me
realm,
too.
and the only way we're going to recover is to
I have
realize it.
Yes, 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 yes,
I
yes.
truly believe
Bye bye.
we need the help of advance in order to do that.
Part of our work is to respect these medicines, and then to change the culture enough that people doing them can be respected and held, and not everybody needs to do them. Not everybody should or wants to, but that it isn't pushed to the side. And so part of that does involve then research, because that's how in our reductionist society we validate things.
With the passing of the years,
run through. Are you ready, Stallone?
Mm-hmm.
So, are you ready?
Where are we going?
Wherever you want.
You wanna go one more interchange? Hmm?
Yeah.
Okay.